Chosen one, before you ever understood why certain doors closed in your face, heaven already knew the purpose behind every delay. There were moments when you questioned your worth, when silence surrounded your prayers, and when it seemed as though everyone else was moving ahead while you remained standing still. Yet what appeared to be abandonment was actually preparation. God was separating you from distractions, strengthening your spirit in places no one else could see, and shaping your character for an assignment that could never be entrusted to an ordinary heart. You passed every unseen test, and now the time has come to reveal what was hidden from you all along. You never realized that some of the hardest battles in your life were never meant to destroy you. They were designed to expose the strength that God had already placed inside you before you were born. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every lonely season carried a lesson that your spirit needed before stepping into this next chapter. While others looked at your life and saw delays, heaven looked at your life and saw divine timing. There is a difference between waiting, because you are forgotten, and waiting, because you are being prepared. You were never forgotten. You were being positioned. There were nights when your heart cried out for answers that never came. You wondered why people you trusted suddenly disappeared. You questioned why opportunities slipped through your fingers at the last possible moment. You even asked God whether you had made a wrong turn somewhere along the journey. But what you could not see was that every closed door protected you from a future that would have stolen your calling. Every person who walked away created space for those assigned to walk with you in your next season. Every delay kept you from arriving before you were spiritually ready. The enemy thought isolation would weaken you, but heaven transformed isolation into your classroom, while the world measured success through applause and recognition. God measured your growth through obedience and endurance. Every silent prayer you whispered, every tear that fell when no one was watching, every decision to remain faithful, even when life made no sense, became evidence that your spirit could be trusted with greater responsibility. This is why your path has always looked different from everyone else's. You were never called to follow the crowd, because your assignment requires a perspective that can only be developed through uncommon experiences. Others received shortcuts. You received lessons. Others were handed opportunities. You were handed transformation. At the time, it seemed unfair. Looking back, you will realize it was one of the greatest blessings heaven could have given you. There is something remarkable about those whom God chooses. They often spend years feeling misunderstood, not because they lack value, but because they carry a purpose that cannot be fully explained until the appointed time arrives. You have probably noticed that people often judged your silence as weakness. They mistook your patience for fear. They assumed your kindness meant you could be overlooked. Yet every false assumption became another layer of protection around the destiny God was preserving for you. You passed tests you never knew you were taking. Every time you refused to respond with bitterness after being hurt, you passed. Every moment you chose integrity over temporary gain, you passed. Every occasion you continued believing despite overwhelming uncertainty, you passed. Heaven was watching what the world ignored. God was observing your private decisions far more carefully than your public victories. Many people believe divine promotion arrives through talent alone, but heaven values character before ability. Skills may open earthly doors, but character determines whether those doors remain open. This is why God invested so much time shaping your heart. He knew that gifts without wisdom become dangerous, influence without humility becomes destructive, and success without spiritual maturity becomes an invitation for pride. There were moments when you believed you were falling behind, because others seemed to advance with ease. They celebrated milestones while you wrestled with unanswered questions. They gained recognition while your efforts remained unseen. But comparison was never meant to define your journey. Your timeline belongs to God, not to public opinion. The seeds planted in hidden soil often produce the strongest trees because their roots learn to reach deeper before anyone admires their branches. What you interpreted as delay was often divine restraint. God refused to release certain blessings until your spirit became stronger than your emotions. He waited until your identity rested in him instead of people's approval. He waited until you could receive abundance without forgetting the one who provided it. He waited until your purpose mattered more than your comfort. That season of confusion had a purpose. It forced you to seek wisdom instead of relying solely on your own understanding. It taught you that faith is not believing only when everything makes sense. Faith is continuing to walk even when the road disappears into uncertainty. Every difficult season stretched your spiritual vision beyond what your natural eyes could perceive. You may have wondered why certain relationships ended without explanation. Sometimes God removes people before they can interfere with what he has already planned. Not everyone who enters your life is assigned to remain there forever. Some arrive as lessons. Some arrive as confirmations. Others arrive simply to reveal what must be healed within you. Once their purpose is fulfilled, heaven quietly begins creating distance. This is one of the secrets rarely discussed. Being chosen often means experiencing separation before celebration. God separates you from environments that limit your growth long before he introduces you to the places where your gifts will flourish. At first, the separation feels painful because it resembles loss. Later, you recognize it as protection. Every obstacle became spiritual training. Every disappointment became hidden preparation. Every unanswered prayer became an invitation to trust more deeply. Nothing was wasted. Even your mistakes became opportunities for mercy to reshape your future. God's ability to redeem broken moments has always been greater than your ability to create perfect ones. You carried questions that no one around you could answer because the answers were never meant to come from people alone. Heaven was teaching you to recognize God's voice above the noise of human expectations. The quieter life became, the more clearly you began sensing his direction. Silence was never empty. It was filled with divine instruction waiting for your heart to become still enough to receive it. Many overlooked your potential because they evaluated your present instead of your promise. They judged the unfinished chapter without realizing God was still writing the story. This is why you should never measure yourself according to opinions formed during seasons of preparation. Those who only see your current circumstances cannot accurately predict your future assignment. You survived situations that should have broken you completely. Looking back, there were moments when the outcome could have been much worse. Somehow you found strength you did not know existed. Somehow hope returned after despair. Somehow another opportunity appeared after every setback. Those moments were not coincidences. They were reminders that God's hand remained upon your life even when you could not recognize it. Now heaven wants you to understand something that changes everything. The trials were never random. Each challenge corresponded to a specific strength you would eventually need. Rejection taught resilience. Waiting taught patience. Betrayal taught discernment. Loss taught dependence on God instead of temporary things. Every lesson became another piece of the foundation beneath your calling. Your spirit has become stronger than you realize. The version of yourself that once doubted every step has quietly transformed into someone capable of carrying greater responsibility. You may still feel ordinary on certain days, but heaven no longer measures you according to your feelings. God measures you according to the work his Spirit has accomplished within you. This is why you can no longer remain hidden in fear. The season of preparation cannot last forever. There comes a moment when heaven declares that the testing has accomplished its purpose. The refining fire has produced endurance. The waiting has produced wisdom. The silence has produced clarity. The tears have produced compassion. The wounds have produced understanding that cannot be learned through comfort alone. The truth that has remained hidden is beginning to unfold piece by piece. You are starting to notice patterns that once seemed unrelated. Connections that confused you are becoming clear. Events that appeared meaningless now reveal divine intention. The scattered pieces of your journey are slowly forming a picture that only God could have designed. And as this revelation continues to unfold, you are about to discover that the greatest part of the story has not even been revealed yet. Chosen one, There is a reason heaven waited until now to begin unveiling these truths. If they had been revealed too early, you might have misunderstood them. You might have tried to force doors that were meant to open on their own, or rush toward blessings that required a stronger spirit to carry them. God does not simply reveal information. He reveals it at the moment your heart is capable of receiving it with wisdom instead of excitement alone. Timing has always been one of his greatest expressions of love. The world often teaches that faster is better, that immediate success is the ultimate proof of favor. But God's kingdom operates by a different rhythm. A diamond spends years beneath pressure before anyone admires its brilliance. An oak tree develops roots long before its branches stretch toward the sky. Likewise, your life has been developing beneath the surface in ways invisible to human eyes. What appeared to be stillness was actually growth taking place where only heaven could see. You may have noticed that every time you thought you had finally reached the end of one challenge, another seemed to appear. That was never meant to discourage you. It was evidence that your capacity was expanding. A teacher does not continue giving the same lesson to a student who has already mastered it. Every new challenge reflected a new level of trust. Heaven was preparing you for responsibilities that required greater faith, deeper discernment, and unwavering dependence upon God. There were moments when you wondered why your prayers seemed to echo back in silence. You expected immediate answers, yet all you received was another opportunity to wait. What you could not perceive was that while you waited for God to change your circumstances, He was changing you. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not the removal of difficulty, but the transformation of the person walking through it. By the time the answer arrived, you were no longer the same individual who first prayed for it. Think about the strength you carry now compared to the person you were years ago. There was a time when one disappointment could shake your confidence for weeks. There was a season when criticism felt unbearable, when rejection convinced you that your future had been erased. Yet now you stand with scars that no longer define your identity. They have become reminders of God's faithfulness instead of evidence of defeat. That transformation did not happen overnight. It happened through countless moments of choosing faith over fear. Every decision to keep believing became another brick laid upon the foundation of your purpose. Every time you resisted bitterness, another part of your heart became aligned with heaven. Every act of forgiveness strengthened muscles within your spirit that would later support greater assignments. You often believed that the greatest victories would come through dramatic miracles. Yet many of God's most powerful works unfolded quietly. Your thinking changed. Your priorities shifted. Your desires matured. Things that once consumed your attention gradually lost their influence over you. You did not even realize the transformation until you look back and recognize that you no longer reacted the way you once did. This is one of the unmistakable signs that someone has been shaped by God. The external world may remain uncertain, but the internal world begins to reflect peace that cannot be explained by circumstances. Others panic while you remain anchored. Others surrender to despair while you continue expecting God's goodness. This confidence is not rooted in human optimism. It is rooted in repeated experiences of God's faithfulness. You have survived too many impossible moments to believe that your life is directed by coincidence alone. Too many unexpected opportunities appeared exactly when you needed them. Too many dangers passed without consuming you. Too many unanswered questions eventually revealed perfect answers. Looking back, you can trace invisible fingerprints across your entire journey. What seemed random at the time now reveals deliberate divine guidance. Even the people who underestimated you unknowingly served your purpose. Their doubt pushed you toward deeper dependence on God. Their rejection forced you to seek acceptance from heaven instead of humanity. Their criticism refined your character more effectively than constant praise ever could. While they believed they were limiting your future, they were unknowingly strengthening the qualities that would define it. Never underestimate what God can accomplish through seasons that appear unproductive. Some of your greatest growth occurred during times when nothing seemed to be happening. While the world measured progress by visible achievement, heaven measured progress by invisible transformation. God celebrated victories that no audience applauded because he understood they would eventually produce fruit lasting far beyond temporary recognition. There is another truth you need to hear. Not every delay originated from opposition. Some delays were expressions of protection. Imagine receiving influence before developing humility. Imagine gaining abundance before learning contentment. Imagine stepping into leadership before mastering self-control. Those blessings could have become burdens instead of gifts. God's delays often prevent future heartbreak by ensuring your character grows alongside your calling. You were never being punished. You were being preserved. There is a profound difference between those two realities. Punishment pushes someone away from purpose, but preservation guards purpose until the appointed time arrives. Throughout your journey, heaven has acted more like a careful gardener than a distant observer. Every unnecessary branch was gently removed. Every harmful influence was gradually separated. Every season carried intentional care, even when it felt uncomfortable. Sometimes you mistook pruning for loss. You mourned opportunities that disappeared, relationships that dissolved, and dreams that seemed forgotten. Yet a gardener never prunes because he hates the tree. He prunes because he sees greater potential than the tree currently understands. God saw fruit within your future that required temporary sacrifice in the present. The enemy hoped discouragement would convince you to abandon your assignment before discovering its importance. Every whisper telling you that your life lacked significance was designed to distract you from heaven's plan. Every temptation to settle for less than God's purpose attempted to exchange eternal impact for temporary comfort. Yet despite moments of exhaustion, despite seasons of uncertainty, you continued moving forward. Sometimes you crawled instead of walked, but you never completely surrendered. That perseverance matters more than you realize. Many people begin their spiritual journey with enthusiasm, but lose heart when challenges arise. You remained, you questioned, you wrestled, you searched, yet something within your spirit refused to completely let go of God. Even during moments when your faith felt fragile, it continued breathing beneath the surface. That quiet persistence became evidence that heaven's hand remained upon your life. There were days when you believed no one noticed your efforts. You served faithfully without recognition. You loved people who rarely appreciated your kindness. You invested time into dreams that produced little visible reward. It would have been easy to become cynical. It would have been understandable to quit. Yet every unseen act of faithfulness was carefully recorded in heaven. God never overlooks hidden obedience. Human applause fades quickly, but divine approval carries eternal weight. The choices you made when no one applauded revealed who you truly were becoming. Integrity developed in private always carries greater power than popularity developed in public. That is why heaven focused more on shaping your heart than increasing your audience. You may wonder why certain opportunities are beginning to appear now. It is because preparation and timing are finally intersecting. The doors opening before you are not random chances. They are invitations connected to everything God has been cultivating within you. The wisdom, gained through hardship, now has a place to be applied. The compassion formed through suffering now has people waiting to receive it. The endurance, built through years of testing, now has an assignment worthy of it. Do not mistake this new season for luck. It is the visible manifestation of invisible preparation. Others may only see sudden progress, but heaven remembers every hidden sacrifice. They see the harvest without realizing how many seasons you spent planting seeds in faith. They admire the confidence without knowing how often fear had to be surrendered. They celebrate your victories without witnessing the countless private battles fought long before anyone noticed. This is why comparison must finally come to an end. No one else has walked your exact path. No one else has carried your specific lessons, your unique burdens, or your personal encounters with God. Comparing your journey to someone else's is like comparing two entirely different books simply because they share the same cover. Heaven authored your story with intentional precision. Your assignment is equally unique. There are people whose prayers are connected to your obedience, though neither you nor they realize it yet. There are conversations only you will be able to have because your experiences created understanding that cannot be manufactured. There are broken hearts that will trust your words because they recognize that you truly understand suffering. Your pain was never meant to become your permanent identity, but it was always meant to become part of your testimony. One day someone will ask how you maintained hope through impossible circumstances. They will expect a complicated strategy, but your answer will point toward God's faithfulness. Another person will wonder how you forgave those who deeply wounded you. Again, your answer will reveal the transforming power of grace. Someone else will struggle beneath the same questions that once kept you awake at night, and because you remained faithful through your own journey, you will possess the wisdom to strengthen them. This is how heaven multiplies purpose. Your experiences become bridges leading others toward healing. Your victories become evidence that restoration is possible. Your scars become proof that survival is not only achievable but meaningful. Nothing that God allowed into your life was meaningless. Every chapter, whether joyful or painful, contributes to a testimony still unfolding. There are still mysteries you have not yet uncovered. There are prayers already answered in heaven that have not yet appeared within your circumstances. There are divine connections moving quietly toward your life even now. While you focus on today's responsibilities, God continues arranging tomorrow's opportunities. His work never stops simply because your eyes cannot yet perceive it. Remain attentive. Not every opportunity will arrive wrapped in obvious greatness. Some of the most significant moments begin as simple acts of obedience. A single conversation may redirect an entire future. One unexpected meeting may unlock years of preparation. One decision to trust God, despite uncertainty, may become the turning point that changes everything. This is why discernment has become more valuable than ever before. The next chapter will require you to recognize God's voice amid countless competing distractions. Many invitations will appear attractive, but not every open door is your assignment. The wisdom developed through years of waiting now becomes your greatest protection. You have learned that God's peace often carries more authority than human excitement, and that lesson will guide you through what lies ahead. The story unfolding before you is far greater than personal success. Heaven has always been preparing you for influence that reaches beyond your own comfort. The refining process, the hidden seasons, the unanswered questions, the quiet victories, and the relentless growth have all been shaping you for revelations that are only beginning to emerge. And as those revelations continue to unfold, you will soon discover that the next truth God is about to reveal will completely change the way you understand everything that has happened up to this point. Chosen one, perhaps the greatest revelation of all, is this: you were never fighting merely for survival. Every battle carried a purpose far beyond the moment itself. Heaven was not only bringing you through difficult seasons, heaven was creating someone who could stand as living proof that God still fulfills his promises. Your journey has never been about achieving perfection. It has always been about becoming available to the one who called you before the foundations of the earth. There will always be voices attempting to convince you that your past is too complicated, your mistakes too significant, or your dreams too impossible. But those voices cannot erase what God has already declared over your life. Human opinions change with circumstances, yet God's purpose remains steady through every season. What he has spoken cannot be overturned by rejection, delayed by disappointment, or canceled by fear. The assignment resting upon your life was established long before your greatest struggle, and it will continue long after your greatest victory. Remember this whenever uncertainty tries to return. The same God who carried you through every unanswered question will carry you into every answered promise. The same hand that protected you in hidden places will guide you in visible places. The same wisdom that sustained you in seasons of waiting will direct you in seasons of abundance. Nothing about your future will surprise heaven because every step has already been seen by the one who walks before you. Do not be discouraged if every detail has not yet become clear. Faith has never required complete understanding. It only requires complete trust. There will still be moments when you cannot see the entire path ahead, but you no longer need to. You have already witnessed enough of God's faithfulness to know that He never abandons those He calls. Every time He closed a door, another path was being prepared. Every time He allowed a delay, something greater was being arranged beyond your sight. Walk forward with confidence, not because every obstacle has disappeared, but because you now understand that obstacles never had the final word. God did. The challenges that once intimidated you have become reminders of victories already won. The fears that once controlled your decisions have lost their authority because you have learned where true strength is found. Your confidence no longer depends on circumstances. It rests in the unchanging character of the One who has guided you from the beginning. Never forget that your testimony is still speaking even when your mouth is silent. Your perseverance encourages people who have never told you they were watching. Your kindness reflects God's heart to those who have forgotten what compassion looks like. Your faithfulness plants seeds in lives you may never fully know on this side of eternity. Every act of obedience carries influence far beyond what your natural eyes can measure. As you continue into this next season, leave behind the weight of old doubts. Leave behind the belief that you are unworthy of the calling placed upon your life. Leave behind every label that people tried to place upon you when they could not understand your journey. You are not defined by rejection. You are not defined by delay. You are not defined by failure. You are defined by the God who chose you, refined you, protected you, and prepared you. Now you understand why the waiting mattered. You understand why the lonely seasons could not be avoided. You understand why certain people had to leave, why certain doors had to remain closed, and why some prayers seemed unanswered for so long. Every chapter, every lesson, every tear, and every triumph has been woven together into a story that displays God's wisdom and faithfulness in ways you could never have imagined when the journey first began. So lift your eyes with renewed hope. Walk with courage instead of hesitation. Speak with faith instead of fear. Trust with confidence instead of doubt. The God who began this work within you has never stopped working, and He never will. You passed the hidden tests. You endured the refining fire. You remained faithful through seasons that would have caused many to surrender. Now you know the truth that heaven has been waiting to reveal all along. You were never overlooked, never forgotten, and never abandoned. You were chosen from the very beginning, and every step of your journey has been leading you toward the purpose God lovingly prepared for you long before you ever took your first breath.